Hi, boys and girls. Miss Lehmann here with a new book, Stink and the World's Worst Super Stinky Sneakers. Have you guys ever heard of these stink books? They're pretty funny. All right, so the first chapter we're going to read is called Gross Me Out. Gross me out, Stinko, Skunksville. Stink Moody was in love. In love with school, that is. Smart boy. It was the best day ever of second grade, the best day ever for Class 2D, and maybe possibly the best day ever in the whole world and his entire life so far. Mrs. D was taking Stink Moody and his class on a field trip. A smell trip to the smelliest place on earth. Class 2D was going on a special trip to the Gross Me Out exhibit at the Science Museum, and Stink had a fifth sense that it was going to be the smelliest field trip ever. Stink carpooled with his two best not smelly friends, Webster and Sophie of the L's, aka Elizabeth, but nobody was allowed to call her that. Hey guys, did you know one human being person can smell about 10,000 smells? Also, smelling peppermint makes you smarter. No way, no how, said Webster. I love peppermint ice cream, said Sophie, so I guess that makes me smart. How do you know so much about smelly stuff anyway? Asked Webster. His name's Stink, isn't it? Said Sophie. No, come on, for real, said Webster. Don't forget, I read the whole entire S encyclopedia. Books do not lie, especially the encyclopedia. Class 2D followed their teacher into the museum. Stink ducked as he stepped through a pair of ugly red lips and giant chomping teeth at the entrance to the wonderful world of smelly stuff. Slimy, oozy, stinky, gooey. There were beeps and toots and blinking lights in every direction. Where to start? The vomit machine? The musical farts? The burpometer? Stink could not decide. I think there's a giant nose here somewhere, he told his friends. I saw the picture in the paper. Count me out, said Webster. Where there's a giant's nose, there could be... Giant boogers, said Sophie and Webster at the same time, shivering at the thought. Well, I'm going to check out the giant nose first, said Stink. Not me, said Webster. Not me, said Sophie. Okay, smell you around, Stink said, cracking himself up. Stink stinky facts. Race ya, sneeze travels as fast as a car, 40 miles per hour. The fastest sneeze clocked in at 100 miles per hour. No lie. Chapter 2. More fun than earwax. Stink took an up-close and personal tour of the giant nose. He got attacked by giant nose hairs, peered down a big, ugly, bumpy throat, and skipped through the hall of mucus. He even learned how boogers are made. Not pretty. Having fun? Miss D asked him. Are you kidding? This is more fun than earwax, Stink told Mrs. D. And educational, too, he added. Grown-ups loved the E word. They liked to think you were learning stuff no matter what. Mrs. D smiled. Stink, you seem to be interested in the sense of smell. Maybe you'd like to try the Everybody Stinks exhibit? Nobody else seems to want to go near it. Mrs. D pinched her nose and shook her head. How smelly can it be? Stink said bravely. Mrs. D pointed to the far end of the exhibit. Stink strolled over and read the instructions. Match the body odor with the body parts they come from, Stink read aloud. Before Stink knew it, the whole class had gathered around him. Webster announced to the class, Hey everybody, Stink's going to smell B.O. Stink wasn't so sure he wanted to smell B.O., but he hated to let Webster and everybody down. So Stink mustered up all his courage, leaned over, put his nose right up to the bottle, and squeezed. He took one sniff, then scrunched up his face, clutched his chest, and crumpled to the floor. Ah! Everybody gasped, taking in what sounded like one big breath. Ha 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 ha! Gotcha, Stink cried, jumping back up. What did it smell like? Sophie asked. feet, said Stink. It's not that bad. Just smells like dirty socks when your feet sweat and you take your shoes off. Sounds bad to me, said Webster. Stink squeezed the next bottle. Ugh, this one smells like onion, maybe garlic. Phew. Phew. Bad breath, Stink said, waving his hand in front of his face. P.U. This one smells like my soccer shirt. Armpit alert. It's B.O., somebody shouted. He did it. He really smelled B.O., and he didn't even faint. After Stink smelled all the body part smells, he moved to the next station. Rotten eggs, dirt, perfume, mothballs, skunk, rotten cabbage, dog breath, old fish, dead broccoli. Stink sniffed and snuffled his way through a dozen yucky, rotten smells. He made a few faces, but he guessed every single smell right. P.U. How did you do that? You didn't miss one, said Webster. I just follow my nose, said Stink, sticking his expert sniffer in the air. You always were nosy, said Sophie of the L's, laughing. Some people have an excellent sense of smell, Mrs. D explained. I smell something too, said Sophie. Hamburgers. Ah, when do we get to eat lunch? Asked Webster. My digestion is empty. Class 2D sat at the picnic tables outside munching on sandwiches. Mrs. D passed around flyers from the museum about a stinky sneaker contest being held at the park in 2 weeks. Stink read the flyer. Wow, check it out. Can anybody enter? Anybody with smelly sneakers, said Miss D, chuckling. Stinks are the worst, said Webster, backing away from Stink. But my sneakers are so smelly I had to wear rain boots today, said Sophie, showing off her pink polka dot boots. I bet I can win. My sneakers will beat the pants off yours any day, Stink told Sophie. But you haven't even smelled mine, said Sophie. Stink shrugged. I'm just saying. His sneakers just had to be the smelliest. But what if Sophie's were super stinky bad too? Or worse? Well, I'm sure my daughter will want to enter the smell monster. Her smell monsters, Mrs. D said, making air quotes with her hands. That's what she calls her sneakers. So I hope to see some of you there in 2 weeks. Then Mrs. D asked them all about what they learned at the Gross Me Out exhibit. I learned that even walruses have dandruff, said Eliza. I learned the words to the diarrhea song, said Patrick. Let's wait till after lunch to hear that, said Mrs. D. I learned how to say fart in Spanish, said Jordan. Pero. I learned that spit is gross, said Riley. I learned that there are more critters in your mouth than people in Australia, said Sophie of the L's. I learned that Stink is the best smeller in the world, said Webster. We should call you the Nose, said Sophie. You know how to smell better than a dog. Better than an ant, said Stink. Everybody looked at him funny. What? An ant has 5 noses, said Stink, nodding his head and tapping his honker. No lie. There he is. Stink, stinky facts. 250,000 stinkers. Did you know that just 1 foot contains 250,000 sweat glands and doses up to 2 cups of sweat every day? No wonder sneakers are so smelly. I hope you enjoyed the first 2 chapters of our new book, Stink and the World's Worst Super Stinky Sneakers. Have a great afternoon.